It started with a single sentence that didn't feel real when I first heard it. "My mom wants you to pay her $10,000 before the wedding," my fiancée, Madison, said casually over dinner one night. I actually laughed. "That's a good one, $10,000 for what exactly?" She didn't laugh back, she didn't even smile. She just stared at her plate and said softly, "For raising me." The room went silent. The sound of the ceiling fans suddenly felt louder than everything. "You're serious?" I asked, my voice low. She nodded slowly. She said it's a symbolic gesture, a way of showing appreciation for all the years she spent raising me alone. I blinked at her, waiting for her to say she was joking. But she was. "Madison," I said finally, trying to keep calm, "I'm not paying your mom 10 grand just to marry you. That's insane." She sighed and reached for my hand. "Babe, don't make this a big deal. She's not asking for a bride price or anything. She just wants to feel acknowledged. You know how she is." Oh, I knew exactly how her mother was. When I first met Sharon, Madison's mom, she seemed sweet, almost overly sweet, complimenting me, calling me son after our third meeting, insisting on cooking for me every time I visited. But behind that sugary tone was control. She loved attention, money, and the power both brought her. Over time, I started to notice the manipulation. If I didn't compliment her food, she'd sulk. If Madison didn't answer her calls immediately, she'd guilt trip her with, "I guess you've forgotten who sacrificed everything for you." Still, I bit my tongue, because I loved Madison. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 6 months. She was the calm to my chaos, a teacher, soft-spoken, patient, the type who made strangers feel like old friends. But her mother, she treated her like an investment that needed to pay dividends. And now apparently I was the return. "Madison, this isn't right," I said finally. "You're not property. She didn't raise you to sell you off." Her eyes filled with tears. "Please don't say it like that. It's not about money, it's about respect." "Respect," I snapped. "Respect doesn't come with an invoice." She looked away, and for the first time I saw doubt flicker in her eyes, but she didn't argue, she just said, "Let's talk about it later." Later turned into a week. A week of cold silence, awkward calls, and her mom's name popping up on my phone more than Madison's. Then, on Sunday morning, Sharon showed up. No warning, just pulled into my driveway like she owned the place, stepped out of her shiny silver Lexus and rang the doorbell with the confidence of a tax collector. When I opened the door, she smiled. "Good morning, dear, can we talk?" I wanted to say no, but Madison was standing behind her, looking like she'd been crying. Sharon sat on the couch like it was her throne and placed a folder on the coffee table. Inside was a typed document, no joke, a list of expenses for raising Madison. Diapers $1,200. Private school $25,000. Dance lessons $5,500. College support $18,000. Even emotional labor during teenage years had a dollar value. At the bottom, in bold, final amount due $10,000, family discount applied. I stared at it, half expecting a hidden camera crew to jump out. "You can't be serious," I said slowly. "Oh, I'm very serious," Sharon replied. "I've given my daughter the best life I could. I expect her husband to recognize that. By cutting you a check." She crossed her legs. "By showing gratitude. It's not about the money, dear, it's about the principle." I looked at Madison, but she just whispered, "Mom, maybe this isn't the right time." "Oh hush," Sharon snapped, "this is between adults." That was the moment something in me shifted. Up until then, I'd been polite, careful not to offend, but watching the woman I loved shrink into silence because her mother couldn't let go, that hit a nerve. "Let me be clear," I said. "I'm marrying Madison, not you. You don't get to turn her love into a transaction." Her expression hardened. "Then maybe this marriage isn't right for our family." "Our family," I repeated. "There is no our family until Madison and I say I do." She stood up, grabbed her folder and said coldly, "Then I'll consider this matter unresolved. You have until the engagement party next week to decide." Then she left just like that. Madison burst into tears the second the door closed. "I'm so sorry, I didn't know she'd do that. She's always been like this." I wrapped my arms around her, but deep down, I knew something had cracked between us. Because love doesn't survive well when money starts taking the front seat. Over the next few days, Sharon's manipulation went into overdrive. She called Madison daily. She hinted to relatives that I was stingy. She even told Madison that men who can't provide upfront usually can't provide long-term. It was toxic and it was working. Madison started withdrawing, doubting me, questioning if I really loved her enough to make peace. Then came the engagement party, the day everything exploded. It was held at a fancy restaurant Sharon had insisted on booking, all her friends there, not ours. I showed up with a smile plastered on my face, ready to endure whatever performance she had planned. Halfway through the dinner, Sharon clinked her glass and stood up to speak. "First, I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate this beautiful union," she began sweetly. "But before we toast, there's one little formality to address." She turned to me. "Ethan, dear, did you bring the check?" The entire room went quiet. I froze. Madison's fork dropped. "Mom," she hissed. But Sharon just smiled at me like a shark. "We don't want to start a marriage with unfinished business, do we?" Every guest's eyes were on me. I took a deep breath. "You want your check, Sharon?" She nodded proudly. "It's the honorable thing to do." I smiled slowly. "You'll get it, but not the way you think." Then I stood, pulled my phone from my pocket, and hit record. "Everyone," I said loudly enough for the room to hear, "just so we're clear, this woman is demanding I pay her $10,000 for raising her daughter before she allows the wedding to go forward." Gasps rippled through the room. Sharon's face went pale. "Ethan, stop it, this isn't appropriate." "No, you're right," I said, "it's not, but neither is treating your daughter like a receipt." Madison was shaking. I could see the humiliation in her eyes, but I also saw something else: relief. Sharon stormed out, her friends whispering as she passed. The next morning, that video had over 2 million views. Someone at the party had leaked it online. The caption read, "Mom demands $10,000 from daughter's fiancé before marriage, calls it raising fee." Within hours, the internet turned her into a meme. But that's not where it ended. The first time I ever truly doubted my relationship was the night my fiancé's mom handed me an envelope across the dinner table, smiling like she was doing me a favor. Inside, it was a neatly printed invoice for $10,432.5. "For raising Emily," she said, sipping her wine. "We're just asking you to cover what it costs to bring her up to be the woman you're about to marry." I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but she didn't laugh back. Emily didn't either. She just looked at me, nervous, expectant, like I was supposed to say thank you. That was the moment I realized I might be marrying into something darker than love. It all started 2 years earlier when I met Emily at a friend's charity gala. She was beautiful, polished, and had this effortless warmth that drew people in. I was working as a civil engineer, steady job, good salary, and she was just finishing grad school in design. We clicked instantly. Our relationship moved fast. Within a year, we were engaged. My family adored her, but from the start, her mom, Linda, was different. Linda was the kind of woman who loved control. She spoke in statements, not suggestions. "We'll have the engagement party at my country club. I'll pick the cake designer." Emily has no eye for these things. And Emily, she'd just smile, nod, and say, "Whatever makes you happy, Mom." At first, I brushed it off. Some moms are just over-involved. But slowly, it started to feel like I was marrying both of them. When we started planning the wedding, Linda insisted on handling the budget. She claimed she was experienced in event planning. A month later, she handed me a spreadsheet with a total cost of $68,000, all under her supervision. I offered to split things fairly, but she smirked and said, "Oh no, dear, you'll be covering it. That's how a man shows commitment." Emily didn't protest. That should have been my red flag. But love makes you stupid, especially when you think you've found your forever person. Then came the dinner, the infamous bill for raising her. I asked if she was serious, and Linda leaned back in her chair like a queen. "Of course. I've invested 26 years of care, food, shelter, and education. You're benefiting from all of that now. Seems fair you contribute back." I stared at Emily, waiting for her to say something, anything, but she just whispered, It's just how Mom sees things. Maybe you can give her something small to keep the peace." That night I couldn't sleep. I wasn't angry, I was hurt, because the woman I loved didn't defend me. The next morning, I decided to talk to her alone. "Emily," I said, "I'm not buying you, this isn't a transaction." She looked frustrated. "I know, but it's just money. If paying her makes her happy, isn't it worth it for peace?" That's when I realized how deep her mother's influence ran. Over the next few weeks, things spiraled. Linda began inserting herself into everything from the guest list to the honeymoon destination. She even called my office to confirm my salary so she could adjust the wedding budget accordingly. My boss pulled me aside, awkwardly saying, "Your future mother-in-law just asked for your tax forms." I wanted to laugh, I wanted to scream. Finally, I decided enough was enough. I told Emily we needed to set boundaries. She promised she'd talk to her mom. The next day, I got a text not from Emily but from Linda. "Don't ever come between a mother and her daughter again." That's when I knew I was in a war I didn't sign up for. But what Linda didn't realize is that she'd picked the wrong man to manipulate. I didn't respond to Linda's text that night. I didn't need to. Instead, I quietly started watching how far they'd go. At first, I thought maybe Emily would wake up to how toxic her mom was, but then I started noticing something darker. She was becoming her mother. It started small. She'd make jokes about how everything in our apartment was technically hers because she picked it out. Then one day, I found an open notebook on the kitchen counter with wedding budget notes, except the title at the top was Our Wedding. It said Expenses Owed by Michael. I stood there staring at the handwriting, wondering what kind of person itemizes their fiancé like a grocery receipt. A few days later, Linda invited us to dinner again. Against my better judgment, I went. The moment I walked in, she smiled that same smug smile and said, "Michael, darling, since you'll be part of this family soon, I think we should discuss financial expectations." Financial expectations. She slid another envelope toward me. This one had a typed contract, yes, an actual contract listing marital contributions. I'd be required to transfer $3,000 a month into a joint account that only Emily could access. "Just until she adjusts to married life," Linda said. I looked at Emily, waiting for her to laugh to say it was absurd, but she just twisted her engagement ring and whispered, "It's not forever." Something broke in me that night. On the drive home, I didn't say a word. She tried to hold my hand. I kept both on the wheel. When we pulled up to my apartment, she said softly, "You're making this harder than it has to be." That's when I realized she wasn't being manipulated anymore. She was participating. So I made a plan. I didn't call off the wedding, not yet. Instead, I started playing along. I told Linda she was right about the contract, that I'd think it over. I let her believe she'd won. Then I began documenting everything. Every text, every email, every voice message where she called me a financial investment. I even recorded a phone call where she bragged to one of her friends about how she was training me to be a compliant husband. Meanwhile, Emily started showing her true colors. She'd complain that I wasn't romantic enough or that my job wasn't prestigious compared to her friends' fiancés. She even suggested I sell my car to show I'm serious about our future. One afternoon, she came home excited. "Mom found a wedding planner. She's expensive, but she's the best." "How expensive?" I asked. She shrugged, "45,000, but we'll just add it to the budget." "Will, Emily, we're not royalty." Her face hardened. Then maybe I should have said yes to Ryan when he proposed. At least he understood what I deserved. That was it, the final crack in whatever love I had left. I smiled. "Then maybe you should give Ryan a call." She froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you and your mom have been keeping score since day one." "Well, now I'm done playing." I walked out before she could respond. The next day, I called my friend Marcus, a lawyer who'd known me since college. I told him everything: the invoice, the contract, the harassment. He laughed at first, then went silent. "Mike," he said, "you're not just being scammed emotionally, this borders on extortion." We put together a little surprise. 2 weeks later, Linda called to announce she'd finalized the pre-wedding financials. She wanted me to come over and sign the agreement. Perfect. I told Marcus to come along undercover, pretending to be my financial advisor. When we arrived, Linda had her living room arranged like a boardroom. Papers spread out, candles burning, even champagne chilling in an ice bucket. Emily was there too, dressed like she was already the bride. Michael, Linda said cheerfully, I knew you'd come to your senses. Marcus smiled politely. Pleasure to meet you, Ms. Thompson. I'll just review these before Michael signs. Linda blinked. Oh, you brought a lawyer. Financial advisor, I corrected, but he knows contracts. Marcus began flipping through the pages slowly. Then, in the calmest tone, he said, Interesting, you're asking my client to commit $3,000 per month plus reimbursements totaling $10,432, correct? Linda stiffened. That's just our understanding. Understanding? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Because this document is legally unenforceable, and if we consider your prior messages about repayment for raising a daughter, this could be construed as coercion. You do know that's a felony, right? The color drained from Linda's face. Emily's voice trembled. Wait, what coercion? Marcus turned to her. Yes, demanding money in exchange for continuing a relationship or for family approval falls under financial coercion, especially when documented. I pulled out my phone, scrolled, and hit play. Linda's own voice filled the room. Once he pays, he'll do whatever we want. Men are simple when you hold the purse strings. Silence. Emily's jaw dropped. Mom, you said that. Linda's voice cracked. That was taken out of context. Marcus smiled faintly. It's literally in context. Emily turned to me, eyes wide. You recorded her. I nodded. And you, every message about payments and financial proof of love. She stepped closer, desperate. Michael, please, I didn't mean it. No, I said quietly, you meant every word. Marcus gathered the papers and stood. Here, how this goes, you stop contacting my client. If you harass or defame him, this evidence goes to the police and to your country club board. I'm sure they'd love to hear how you turn engagements into business deals. Linda just sat there speechless. We walked out. That night, Emily texted nonstop. Apologies, explanations, I was just scared of disappointing Mom. Then the final message, please don't tell anyone, it'll ruin her reputation. I didn't respond, I just forwarded the voice clips to myself, saved everything in a secure folder and blocked both of them. 3 days later, Marcus called laughing, Bro, you're trending. Apparently, someone from Linda's social circle had leaked screenshots of her daughter-raising invoice and recordings from another dinner party where she bragged about billing her future son-in-law. The story hit a local gossip blog. Within 48 hours, her name was everywhere. The country club suspended her membership, her design business clients pulled out, and Emily, she deleted all her social media. For once, karma didn't need my help. It handled itself after the gossip blogs exploded. My phone didn't stop buzzing for days. Old classmates, coworkers, even distant relatives texted me links. Isn't this your ex's mom? Yeah, it was. At first, I felt embarrassed. Nobody wants their private heartbreak trending online, but then I read the comments. People weren't mocking me, they were defending me. Who charges for raising their kid? This guy dodged a bullet. Run, man, and never look back. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a fool, I felt free. I went back to my apartment that night, sat on the couch and just breathed. No more fake smiles, no more invoices for love, just silence, peace. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Linda's lawyer, an apology on her behalf, claiming the whole thing had been a misunderstanding. I almost laughed. The same woman who billed me 10 grand was now begging for privacy and forgiveness. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. I threw myself into my work, long hours on a new infrastructure project that meant something real. Concrete didn't lie, numbers didn't manipulate. You could trust a bridge more than a promise from people like that. One evening, I ran into Emily at a grocery store. She looked different. No makeup, no designer bag, just a plain hoodie and tired eyes. She froze when she saw me. Michael, hi. I nodded, hey. There was a long silence. She fiddled with a jar of pasta sauce before blurting out, I'm sorry for everything. I didn't answer right away. I looked at her, really looked, and realized she wasn't the villain in my story anymore. She was just someone who never broke free from a woman who taught her that love had a price tag. It's okay, I said quietly. I hope you find what you're looking for. She gave a small, sad smile. I hope you already did. And with that, she walked away. No drama, no tears, just two people finally letting go. A month later, I finished the project at work. It got recognition from the city board and I was offered a promotion. The irony? The ceremony was hosted at the same country club Linda had once bragged about controlling. When I walked in that night, I saw her across the room. She caught my eye, then looked away, pretending not to see me. Karma didn't need me to say a word, it had already done its job. As I stood there, glass in hand, listening to the applause for my team, I realized something important. You can lose people who promised you forever and still win your life back. You can be betrayed, humiliated, and broken and still rise stronger because pain doesn't define you, response does. Life isn't about paying bills for someone else's love, it's about earning peace that can't be bought. If you're watching this and someone's trying to make you prove your worth, don't. Real love doesn't send invoices, real respect doesn't need conditions. Walk away, heal, build something that's yours. And one day, when they see you thriving without them, that'll be the only receipt you'll ever need.